Hey, everybody, it's so good to see you, even though I can't see you. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I got a podcast for you. So, I want to introduce you to a friend of mine, or two of my friends, and I've known these individuals for a very long time. They were with me when I started really making a change in this world. They were part of that movement and helping me give him my voice. And I'm excited to share their story. So, you guys ready for this? Persevering is what can allow you to overcome. But you have to find joy in the pain that you live with. It's not going to be easy, but the reward and the character that you will build in persevering through your challenges will be so rewarding and will give you so much hope. Are you ready to persevere through your challenges? Let's do this. Hey everybody. So, I'm going to introduce you to Josh and Kat Peters, or Kathleen. Is it Kathleen or is it Catherine?
My actual name is Kathleen, but I usually go by Kat.
Yep.
Just my immediate family, my parents and siblings call me Kathleen.
Okay. Well, when you're in trouble, right? Like, hey, Kathleen, what you doing? And then Josh, is your full name like Joshua or just Josh?
It's actually Jeffrey.
Joshua.
It's Joshua, but nobody calls me Joshua. Josh. I was trying to think of something outlandish, but I couldn't. COVID, man. I can't think of anything else coming in my head right now.
My brains are tired. That's pretty good.
Oh, that was good. That was so good. Oh, man.
I answered almost any J name just because, all of my brothers, except for the last one, have J names. So, yeah.
So,
people have a hard time remembering my name.
Yeah.
So.
You get called John a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
I'm not at all bitter about that either. Not at all.
But most people call us Kat and Josh, or Josh and Kat. So
okay. Well, that's what I've known. Just Josh and Kat, or Kat and Josh.
Okay.
So before we dive into you guys' story, and I think this is going to be a fun one. This is the first time I've done a couple, and I'm excited to see how awesome you guys' marriage is, and then as well what you guys have been doing. And so, but let me just kind of help the audience understand, how did I know these people? Honestly, if I didn't go to this one location one time, I would never know this couple. And so in 2009, I was invited to DC. So we went to DC, and we were there as a pilot project to help people who are deafblind be able to communicate to Congress or legislators about telecommunication equipment for deafblind individuals. We're advocating for Helen Keller funding services, as well SSP services, which is service support providers for those who are deafblind. And the one thing that there was all these interpreters that came to this event, and I'm like, wow. Like, they're doing tactile sign language. This is the first time really I've done actual work with deafblind individuals. I've gone to Helen Keller National Center, but I've never done any work like actually working with other deafblind people to talk and really make change happen. And two of those interpreters were these two, Kat and Josh. And ever since then, my wife thought I was going to run away with one of the deafblind students, and I gained a best friend out of it. If you don't know Josh or George, one of my best friends in the world. And literally from that moment on, I had all these amazing friends. And Josh and Kat became a part of that friendship. So I'm excited that I get to bring them onto my podcast for you guys to hear their story. So what we're going to do, we're going to kind of go through a weird timeline of their story. So we're going to start off with Josh's story first. And since Kat is just a goody shoes, we're going to kind of fast forward a little bit into certain parts of their relationship. So Josh, kind of talk to us a little bit. What was your childhood like from the age of 1 to 5 years old?
From 1 to 5? Well, I don't remember much about 1. My memory starts.
You sure? Weren't you running your Superman pajama or underwear with no shirt on and?
Cowboy boots. I did run around in cowboy boots and pajamas a lot, but no. And I wish I could remember, but allegedly I got to go see Star Wars when it came out, so that's pretty good, for my nerd cred. But yeah, I was only 2 months old when it came out, so
yeah,
I don't remember much about it. But honestly, from like 1 to 5, we lived in Big Spring, Texas, and then we went to Abilene, Texas, and then back to Big Spring, Texas. My dad worked in the oil field. My brother was born. I have 3 brothers. One of them was born when I was like 2.5. And it was, from what I remember, it was a little tumultuous. My mom and dad, they separated when I was probably about 4. And then they got back together when I was 5. So, and then my other 2 brothers were born sometime after that.
So you mentioned something really interesting there, Josh. All right, so your mom and dad separated when you were about 4, and then they came back together. Did you guys stay together with your dad, or what happened after that?
Well, we bounced around a couple of places in Odessa, Texas. 3 different places until I was about 9, and then my mom and dad divorced. We left one day while he was at work and escaped to Big Spring. We left to Big Spring to go live with my mom's parents. Yeah, it was pretty scary that day. So,
can you talk to me a little bit? What was that day like when your mom said, "Hey, we're leaving"?
But we kind of felt, like something was not right. They had fought that morning. He left to go to work. It was summer, so we'd been playing out. We had like a acre and a half of land and a bunch of animals and stuff. So my brother and I, the one that was, closer in age to me, the other 2 were babies. We went and fed animals probably and rode our BMX bikes. And then she came and told us to pack stuff into a bag, only what we could carry, and get in the car. It was a very tiny car, so we couldn't take our toys, we couldn't take our bikes, none of the animals. We just got in the car and left. It was about an hour and a half drive from where we lived to my grandparents' house. I don't remember much about the drive.
The number one thing that you left behind was your Star Wars collection, right?
I did leave behind quite a large Star Wars collection and a He-Man collection. Yeah.
I mean, that's brutal right there. Because that is every boy's dream, is to have a good Star Wars collection. And I tell you, at 9 years old, that must have been kind of a struggle. So, from there, where did you go? What happened there?
It was summer, so I went to my, first, second, third, fourth different elementary school of, my childhood. And, but after that, we didn't move anymore. Like, we moved houses once while we were in Big Spring, but then I was I graduated in that town. I went to college in that town. So, but it gave us stability.
So, if I remember right, you talked about your mom working really hard, and then you were being raised by your grandparents, correct?
Yeah. Before my mom and dad divorced, my mom had done a ton of odd jobs, paper route, worked a booth at the flea market for my dad while he was at work. He collected a bunch of, I don't know, all sorts of antiques and guns and things, and so she had a bunch of that at the flea market to sell every Saturday and Sunday. But yeah, she worked hard, and then when we moved in with my grandparents, they were both on Social Security, retirement. My grandpa was a retired janitor, and my grandma was a stay-at-home mom. They didn't make a whole lot of money, so we had to go on food stamps for a little while we were there. And my mom, through my grandparents' help, got into college and went to nursing school. There were four of us staying with she and my parents raising us. So, yeah, she was very hardworking.
There was a pivotal point when you were in high school, correct, where you the light bulb went on for you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Light bulb went on for me for
faith, finding Christ.
Well, honestly, with my faith, it was like before we left my dad's house, I had thought a lot about Jesus. My grandmother's the one who taught me how to pray, and she would do the Lord's Prayer with me. But then she would also do, I can't think of it, but if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. And I'm a little bit of a pessimistic, paranoid person, and it wasn't until she taught me that prayer that I realized that I could die while I was going to sleep. And so I had problems sleeping for a long, long time. And I still think some of my problems sleeping stem from my grandmother's well-meaning, she was trying to instill faith in me, and she did, but she also, reaffirmed that fear. So, but honestly, when I was 7, I remember we were going to this little Baptist church that would come pick us up every Sunday, my brother and I, and everybody in my Sunday school class was making a profession of faith. I didn't know what it was. They took turns going up to the Sunday school teacher, and then they would come back and they'd say they were saved, and she'd make a big deal of it, and then they would go to big church and get baptized. And I was kind of jealous, and I didn't know what they were doing. So one day I was like, hey, this is my turn. So I went and talked to her, and she asked me some questions. I don't remember what they were, and I just, was trying to say all the things that I thought were right. And then at the end, she announced me in front of the classroom that I was saved and that I would be baptized, and I went and got baptized. But I didn't know what that was. At 7, I really didn't know. I know some people do. But throughout, living with my grandparents, when we moved there, my grandma was really instrumental in me, reading the Bible and memorizing the Bible. I remember there was a contest at church where you could win a Bible, or not win, but you were granted a Bible if you memorized all of the books of the Bible, several key passages, and I already had a Bible, but I wanted that one. So she drilled me day and night, and I got the Bible. But it wasn't until I was in high school that I was like, I'm not sure that I know what all of this is about, one of the pastors, we had a new pastor come in, and he talked about salvation being the difference, that a lot of people will miss heaven by 6 inches. And since then, I've heard many, many pastors preach the same thing, but it was new to me at the time, that the 6 inches from your head to your heart, having head knowledge versus heart knowledge. And I didn't feel like I really had heart knowledge. I think I did, but I hadn't made that, profession and made it okay, I understand it now. Yeah, intentional.
I think that you saw hard work from your mom.
Mm-hmm.
had your grandpa and your grandma, and you were the big brother.
Yep.
Oh, and during all that time, there was this lady that you didn't know yet that had how many brothers did you have, Kat?
I also have 3 brothers.
3 brothers. So she's getting bullied by her brothers, and then she's the princess to her dad, sweet talking her dad, like, oh, hey dad, can I have another Barbie or a doll or whatever? And so just to kind of help us move with your story, Kat, what was your childhood like?
Well, the complete opposite of Josh's childhood, because my family was very stable. Not so much for my older brothers. I think kind of before I became like 4 or 5, they had actually moved around quite a bit. So my older brothers, they moved around a lot. My dad was a police officer, and he was a deputy sheriff or a sheriff in lots of little small towns, and so they moved around a lot. But by the time that I was 4 or 5, they were very stable. My mom was a teacher, and so I basically grew up the majority of my life in the same town where my mom still lives today, and one of my older brothers and his children live. It was very structured. When I met Josh's family, I thought of his family a bit as chaos and chaotic. They were very loud, and they were all over the place. And in my house, we were pretty calm. Not to say that we didn't have a lot of fun and laugh. We did, but I don't know. We were just very kind of controlled about it. And my dad, yes, as I was a little girl, I definitely had him wrapped around my finger. But he was also so instrumental in helping me become the person I am today, because he taught me really good critical thinking skills. And as I got older and was a teenager, if I wanted to do something, go somewhere, go out with friends or whatever, I couldn't just go to my dad and say, hey, I want to go to town tonight and hang out with my friends. I had to give him 3 good reasons as to why he should let me do that. And it couldn't just be fluff reasons. I had to have a well thought out plan. Many times we would sit and talk for long hours about just whatever political things or whatever random thing was going on in our world at the time. And my dad would play devil's advocate, and he would make me argue my position, and he would totally believe my position and be on board with me, but he would take the other side and make me kind of debate him. It really served me well, because as I became an adult, it was a lot easier for me to sit back and think and observe and make good choices and not be impulsive. I did have a tendency to be impulsive, and he also was very much a caretaker, a servant. He did random things, like with one of my nephews, when he was little, they would get on the riding lawnmower and drive down the street of our small town, and my nephew would just point to a yard, and my dad, they would go mow it, random person's yard. And those are the kind of things that he did. He was always kind of the behind the scenes person. At church, he was the guy who, if we were having a hamburger cookout, he was the guy with 50 onions at our house slicing them up, because nobody else wanted that job, but he readily volunteered to do it. So he taught me some really crucial things, but he also modeled to me how to be a servant and how to serve others. And really, everything that I have done as an adult has included those 2 things. And so I'm really grateful to have had him as a dad. He passed away from cancer a while back, but example that he and my mom set for me in marriage of when bad things happen, you stick together and you work things out. And when one spouse is overwhelmed, the other spouse steps up and helps. And so it was such a good example for me as to what a real marriage is supposed to be like. And later, when Josh and I were parents and were fostering, it was the example that I wanted to show everyone else of, your home life doesn't have to be tumultuous, even when bad things are happening around you or to you, you can still come home and be in a place of safety and have a spouse who supports you and have a spouse that you support and know that you're not alone and that you're always a team together. And that's one of the things that I'm so thankful for Josh, because he's always on my side. But he will tell me if I'm wrong, but he always has my back, and he's always supportive if I want to try something new. And when things are just going wrong right in front of me, he's always ready to step in and give me a break and take over whenever I need him to.
So this is the journey of the two before you guys met. Like, one had an awesome home, learned all the great things. The other one was just wild and crazy and loud and just... Okay, so both of you guys were going to college in Big Springs.
Yes.
And so... But you guys weren't going to the same college.
Well, they were in the same college system. So they were basically like sister colleges, but one was for hearing and one was for deaf. And then if you were a deaf student or a hearing student at this deaf college, you could also go take classes at the other college, and you could be involved in some of the extracurricular clubs and stuff that SWID didn't have. So I was attending Baptist Student Ministries at this other college, and Josh was too, and that's how we met.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys meet, you had your googly eyes, like, oh, isn't he that cute? But who pursued who? I haven't heard this story. I'm curious about how that was molded.
You want me to tell you?
Sure.
Well, honestly, we were friends. I think we did like each other, but I was probably only there for about a year. And then I moved to Nacogdoches.
Yeah.
And so I was...
You were only there for a year? You were there for 2 years.
I was there for 2 years, but I think I only was around you for about a year. I don't think that I knew you for the whole 2 years.
I think it's because you were there my second year, and then you were still there when I left to go to... I transferred to a 4-year...
So Josh went on to another college, and I went on to another college. But we stayed in touch. We were hours away from each other, but we stayed in touch... Through email, mostly. Because back in the day, cell phones were not as prevalent as they are now. We each had cell phones, but it cost a lot of money to call.
No,
you didn't have a cell phone?
I didn't have a cell phone until we got married. I didn't have a cell phone until I was 23 years old.
I remember...
And that was your dad's cell phone that he gave us for emergency purposes only.
Yeah, you didn't have a cell phone in your pocket back then.
My college roommate did.
And you had you didn't have unlimited plans. So you had very limited text messages and minutes. So we emailed a lot, and then I came home, and we went on a date,
and it didn't go well.
And it didn't go very well, but that was
tell.
I was sick at the time and didn't realize it. I had mono, and I didn't really know that I had mono at the time, so I wasn't feeling well. And
wait, that's when you had mono?
Yeah, I didn't know I had mono at the time, though. And I wasn't feeling well, and I wasn't really feeling the date that well, if that makes sense. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why are you on this date? Like, you need to be in bed. You're tired. And so I kind of was just like, okay, well, that was nice. I'll talk to you later. And that was kind of that.
So at least you didn't kiss on the first date then.
Right? I would have had mono. But she did.
Exactly.
Our date consisted of, we sat in her car and talked, but we talked for 2 hours.
We talked for a long time, yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't know.
I was tired.
We talked for a long, long time. And then she's like, okay, I'll talk to you later. And then she starts to drive away, and I realize my jacket is in her car. And it's winter. And, it's, it's West Texas, so it's colder than, say, San Diego. Yeah. But so I took off running after the car, waving my hands like something out of a movie. And finally she stopped the car. She's like, what? And I said, my jacket is in your car. And she's like, oh, here it is. All right, talk to you later. Bye.
I can tell you. Oh,
but
here it is.
And it wasn't like, oh, I'm so sorry. It was like, oh, here, bye. Hey. It went really well.
But
Really well.
it was the beginning stages of me being sick and starting to feel sick. And so I just was in my mind like, I have got to get home. I have got to go home and go to bed. I'm so tired and I don't know why. And so, yeah, so that did not work out that well. But we did keep emailing. And then not too long after that, I moved back to Big Spring. And we had another date and it went great.
Mm-hmm. It did.
and honestly, like, we didn't date that long before we were talking about marriage. And we did end up waiting almost an entire year, like from the time that other date went well until we actually got married. But we knew pretty quick.
Yeah, it was about a year from the second date, which, we could go ahead and just say the first real date, because we went to the movies and
Yeah.
I think what really struck me in our pre-interview conversation is this next story that you guys are going to talk about. Is the battle that you guys as newlyweds in serving in the church. And this is something, before we get into the story, if you have walked away from the church, if you are struggling with the church itself, I want you to hear this story and the pain. Then I want you to hear, as we move along in this podcast, the healing and the perseverance that comes. What is this podcast all about? Persevering. But it wasn't easy for them to keep persevering, though. We're going to dive into the next story, and it's not like super emotional or anything like that. But I also want you to hear the struggle as a newlywed, as a married couple, in keeping the balance, a healthy balance. And then also, this is something that the church is learning quickly, church burnout. And so I want this to be, you guys to listen to this story and really see Josh's and Kat's heart and where they really were. They didn't know any better. So you guys are newlyweds now, and you guys have gone through, and you're back in Big Springs, right? Or you don't
live we stayed in Big Spring at that point.
So you stayed in Big Springs, and you are in this small church, a Baptist church, and it had a deaf ministry, and kind of talk about that story, and tell us what that was like and what happened.
Well, the church was one that I had attended when I was a student in Big Spring, and later when I moved back, because that's where the deaf people were going, and I mean, we truly loved this church, and it was just a very small country church, and only a few different families that attended, but those people were just the sweetest, loving people. And we loved going there, but we were active in deaf ministry. I was their main interpreter, and there were deaf events that we had, church events that we had, and then we were also active in the youth ministry, and Josh was teaching Sunday school to them, and we were doing youth activities with them, and in deaf ministry often, well, maybe not often, but there in that area, there were a lot of kind of emergency situations where dealing with a lot of students with mental health issues, and it was kind of we could get calls at all times of the day, and there were events just kind of constantly between the deaf ministry and the youth ministry, and we were very much expected to serve. We were they were grooming us to be kind of leaders in the church, or to be like teachers in the church, and we were this young couple, and in some ways that was great, and in other ways it was just very overwhelming, being a brand new married couple and having jobs and also attending school, and then also doing these different ministries and being expected to be there whenever the phone rang. It was exhausting, and it became a bit of trauma, because we we just, like, in our mind, well, if somebody needs us, we should go. That's our job as a Christian. We should be serving. We should always serve. And we should always just put ourselves aside and take care of God's work, because that's what he calls us to do. But totally ignoring the fact that we also have to take care of ourselves and each other, and that you can't help other people if you yourself are not healthy and you don't have some type of balance in your life, because you will run out. You will run out of the ability to help. And we were there for a while, and
we were there for a couple of years. And
yeah.
I mean, we were young. We didn't know that you can say no. You can say, hey, we want to take a step back. And at the time, I thought very seriously about maybe doing youth ministry and pursuing it, because I hadn't finished school. I had started at the interpreter training program that Kat had gone to at SWID to be an interpreter, because we found ourselves back in my hometown, and there weren't a whole lot of options for school. And so I was working overnight at a factory that made Coca-Cola bottles, plastic ones. And Kat was a full-time interpreter. She worked for a very small agency, so she wore a lot of hats. She did part of their coordinating. She did. She worked with senior citizens, hard of hearing. She was like the hard of hearing specialist. She did, whatever her boss couldn't do, she did. It was basically a 2-woman operation. Yeah. And they did the bulk of the work there at the time. And so we were just always busy. And so we were just taking on more and more responsibilities at the church. Looking back on it, I think part of it was like, because I thought I wanted to be a youth minister, that, I was just volunteering for any and everything. And we were looking at extra events to take kids to. And I think, we contributed a lot to our own burnout, but we weren't wise enough to say we need to take some time, because we hit the ground running. Yeah. Like the very first weekend we were back from our honeymoon, we were like at church and we started serving. So
yeah, it was actually because at the time, after serving in this church for a couple of years and just starting to feel so depleted, but also feeling at war with ourselves, that how can we be sad or upset or tired about doing this work when so much has been given to us, and we're a Christian and we believe in Jesus, and we want to share that, and this is how we can do it. And I had an older interpreter who was a dear friend and also a strong Christian, who said, let me tell you about the history of this church, because they have had couples like you come in and they use them up, and those couples leave, and they find another couple and they use them up and those couples leave. And I was like, it was the first time that it had occurred to us that the type of work we were doing and the amount of work we were doing was not normal. It didn't have to be that way. And so we actually made the choice to move, and we moved to another town to kind of help us break away from that church and to find, we moved thinking that we would find another church that we could attend and kind of like just take a break from that serving role for a little while. And we didn't find a church. We would go into a church, and almost immediately, when people realized we were there visiting and we were new, we would get greeted. They would ask us questions about ourselves, and they would right away be like, you're a young, great couple. Would you like to work with our kids? Would you like to serve? And would you like to be in the choir? And I would just think to myself, like, why would you invite us to be with your children? You don't know us. We could be dangerous. You know nothing about us, And also it just felt like, oh no, here we go again. And so after a few churches of that, we stopped trying. We stopped looking for that church that we could be a part of. And we took a break from church for several years. And then we moved to Houston, and we started looking again. And we didn't, for whatever reason, we couldn't find a church that we felt was comfortable or right for us, and that shared the same beliefs as us, because in Houston there are a lot of different churches and there are a lot of different beliefs. So we actually moved back to my hometown area, to the Lubbock and Abilene area, and We had by that time acquired a daughter because we had a good friend. We had a good friend who was a neighbor to us and was very sick and was raising her granddaughter, and we were asked to raise her. And so we were like, we have got to find a church because we have to raise our child in a church. And so we did find a couple of different churches, but we found one in Abilene that was just so amazing and did not ask us to do anything and just wanted to love us and wanted to care for our child. And they had all of these extra programs where you could get help with things. Like they had an adoption support program where you could talk with other parents who had adopted and talk about the struggles you were having, which was amazing because we didn't have anything like that. They had this whole system set up with their children's ministry. Our daughter had several different disabilities having to do with like learning disabilities, and she had some extreme behaviors, and she couldn't, it wasn't a good thing for us to just send her to Sunday school by herself, but they had a buddy system. And the pastor of that church, they had adopted, and their adopted child had some of the same issues as ours. So their whole staff had been trained on what to do with those issues. And it was amazing. So she got her own buddy who happened to be a second grade teacher. And when our daughter was overwhelmed, they would walk out and that teacher would kind of check for understanding with her and talk about what the lesson was about and explain things to her. And she started to come home with these just epiphanies. You know, we'd go eat after church and we'd say, what did you learn in Sunday school? And, you know, a lot of kids, when you ask them what they learned in Sunday school or what they did, they're like, oh, we colored a picture of Jesus. Oh, we did this and we did that, right? But she started to tell us. One day she said, I learned all about sin today. And I learned that sin is like this big thing that hangs around your neck and on your back. And it's like so heavy and it just weighs you down. And when you decide to not do that sin anymore and you ask God to forgive you, it just goes away. Like you don't have to have that weight on you anymore. And I was thinking, oh my goodness. And that was this church that presented things to her in such a way that she could learn it and could understand it and didn't expect anything from us in return. I did eventually start interpreting there because I was ready. I was being fed and I was ready to serve again because this church helped to heal that trauma that we had experienced and got us ready for the church we're at now in Houston.
So I think that the thing is, and we're right now, especially with COVID and the burnout and all of the servings and so forth. It definitely has been. If I could speak to pastors, like, and those that are in the leadership, like, we have to take care of our fellow members and our fellow churchgoers. And I think that's the thing is where we need to step in and say, hey, let's do these things, and helping people navigate what is too much in volunteering. For the longest time, maybe my wife and I, we've been in the church for so long. We've been giving to the church so long. I still continue to keep helping out and doing things. And I mean, who lets a blind guy run the cameras, you know? But hey, I run the live streaming.
That's awesome.
At the same time, is knowing that balance. And I think Josh put the nail on the head. It's okay to say no.
Yeah.
When it's too much. Obviously, don't say no to everything, right? Because then are you really following what Christ is asking you to do? There's a balance. Did you really pray about it? Or do you just allowing yourself to really drive through it? Right. And that's why we're seeing so much burnout in pastors. We're seeing so much burnout in just church members. As my uncle always says, he says, every church has people in it. That's why there's always challenges and problems. Right. I mean, if there wasn't people in the church, it would be perfect. As we heard your story, you guys knew the hunger and the need for church. But the struggle of like, no, don't make me do that again, hold you back. And like, oh, no, we're not doing that. As Christians, as believers, we need to take care of the sheep. So somebody new comes into the church, like right now, the guy that new in our church. He didn't come to the church yesterday, and I just emailed him and said, "Hey, buddy, how's things going?" I'm not trying to get him in any ministry or anything.
Right.
I just genuinely care about him. And as believers, Jesus always wanted us to care and to be there, not necessarily to destroy. And I think that's so important. And this is why I really wanted you guys to talk about this part, because you guys came back to the church and came back because you knew you needed it and you knew you wanted it and you knew, but until the situation with your daughter and realizing you wanted to raise your daughter, you found that church and it became healing for you. And you were persevering through that, knowing, oh, are we going to go through this again? And continue to keep moving forward. Let's kind of go a little bit backwards. So you guys became parents.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that story?
You know, we wanted to have children, and we had a lot of children in our lives because we have so many siblings. In fact, together we have 17, I think. 17 nieces and nephews. Still going, still counting. More to come, I'm sure. So we wanted very much to be parents, but I have an autoimmune disorder that just does not allow for it. And so after going through some miscarriages, we thought like, okay, well, that's it. We just probably won't have kids and we'll just pour our lives into these nieces and nephews that we love so much. And that will be fine. And it was fine, but we ended up living in Lubbock and living next door to just a sweet lady who was raising her granddaughter and was pretty sick. And she was struggling to raise her granddaughter. And so we had actually moved back to my hometown because my dad got cancer and we needed to help with his care. But we stayed in touch. We would take her sometimes and do things with her or bring her to Rotan with us to give Melinda a break. And eventually she asked us to raise her and we prayed about it and decided that we should do it. You know, it was not what we expected because we were very cocky. We were totally like, well, we have taken care of 4 to 6 of our nieces and nephews at one time before. What could one kid do? You know, or
when you say we're cocky, I think you mean you.
I was cocky, very. I really was like,
I can see that. I can see that.
Like, how hard can it be as one kid?
You worked your way through college. You were working at various daycares, and you were gonna go to school to be a teacher. Until you decided, no, I just want to interpret. But and with all of your nieces and nephews,
I was very confident.
At that time, they were still all on your side of the family, except for one on mine. So I mean, I have been around. To be confident.
I also have like a lot of cousins, and I grew up around my family and family reunions and big family get-togethers, and I had always been around children, especially babies. I had always been around them, and so here was this child to become our daughter, who was 8 and almost 9, and we knew that she had some learning disabilities and some other things. Like we knew there was some type of communication disorder, because she spoke a lot of baby talk, and she could not read or write, but she was in 2nd grade for the second time. She had missed a lot of school. And so we knew there were some challenges there. We didn't really know what they were yet. But I was very confident that we were like the perfect people to do this. You know, I have worked with kids who are disabled, and my mom was a special ed teacher, and whatever. We totally could nail this. It was so hard, Kelvin. It was just like the hardest thing we had ever done.
You had no idea.
We had no clue.
We had her for like a couple of weeks. We took her to my family, and we thought that went well. We went to Walmart. And then I went up to the front because a friend of mine was working at the counter. Big Spring's kind of a small town. And so I was talking to him, and I heard some kid yelling no. And then I heard Pat's voice yelling Josh. And then I was like, oh no, that's for me. And I looked at my friend, and he's like, you better go. No, Quinn, she's like, take her to the car now. Okay. Well, so I'm taking her out, and she's yelling, I want a Coke. I was like, I looked at her like, who are you? Because we'd never seen this behavior from her.
No, we hadn't.
And it completely blindsided us. They had been in the dressing room, like, getting her some clothes, and she wanted a Coke.
Yeah.
And it was like 8 o'clock at night.
There's this thing called the honeymoon period when you first adopt or foster a kid. And we had run out of the honeymoon period right in the middle of Walmart in Big Spring, Texas. That period was over with. And I was shocked. Kevin, because that kid yelled no at me, and I looked at her and I said, You stop what you're doing right now. And she did not stop. She kept screaming. And I thought, why are you still screaming? I told you not to scream. Why are you still doing this? Because in my family, we were very structured and orderly, and my nieces and nephews, they knew the line. And literally, we could just look at them and give them the look, and they would stop what they were doing because they knew the rules and the consequences for breaking the rules, right? So I had not really had to deal with a child with any behavioral issues. And
I'm not going to lie, prior to this, I'm pretty sure we had both, but I had judged parents whose children screamed.
Oh, definitely.
Like, you just need to get a control of your kid.
I can't believe your kid is so out of control.
How are you letting your kid do this? You're in public. To flash forward to me going, what are you doing? Why are you being like this? Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. As I'm dragging her by her arm, not really, but like we're
getting her to the car.
We're going to the car, and she's got her eyes over on the the little refrigerator with the Cokes in it, but
yeah. So it was a big culture shock because she also in her life with her grandmother had not had much structure. She'd pretty much been told yes to whatever she wanted anytime she wanted it, and we just had a very big culture clash on top of her having some intellectual disabilities that we didn't really even know of yet, that we were still trying to piece together and figure out. So there were issues with communication, there were issues with culture, and it took about 2 weeks for that honeymoon period to wear out, and then that mask dropped, and it was all over with for there. So it was a struggle. It was. And I remember we used to kind of like get her to bed and sit down to watch TV, and we could not get through one episode of a short TV show because we would just be so tired. We were just worn out and would have to go to bed. So
honestly, you know the show The Office? Have you ever watched that?
Have you ever watched The Office?
I never watched it, but I know all about it. Yeah.
Well, we used to. I mean, it's funny, and sometimes it's a little inappropriate.
A lot of times it's inappropriate.
Yeah, but we latched onto that show.
Probably 20 minutes long.
But we watched it every night after we got her to bed. So much so that she would hear it. She would hear the theme song, and it was. She told me later that it was like a lullaby.
Like
she fell asleep
every
night to the theme song. But that's how we dealt with it. Prayer and humor.
And The Office, prayer and humor. Yeah.
Because
it was a challenge for us for sure. And but and even going through all of that, when we became foster parents, they asked us a lot of questions, like what would you do if a child did this or did something else, and we had an answer for everything because we had been through it. We'd been through it all with this kid, and so I was very confident. Again, I was very like, oh, I totally have this. I've been dealing with that for 6 years, and I'm really good at it now, And so I was, again, overly confident and cocky.
A little bit.
And now we're not fostering anymore, but, now looking back on everything that we learned through fostering. I think I probably had to be confident to do that, because I don't know if anyone else would take those challenges on unless you were feeling confident about it. But I really knew nothing as a parent. I really knew nothing until after these experiences. But our first daughter did prepare us for all of the fostering that we did. That is for sure. And I can look back every step of the way and know that God was ordering our lives, because He did put certain challenges in front of us, and certain moves, jobs, and moves that we made that led us to our daughter, and that also led us to fostering and prepared us for all of those unique personalities that we were going to encounter. And it was all definitely planned out ahead of time.
See, at least you got 2 weeks of honeymoon. I only got a day.
You don't always
and
get
then
2 weeks.
bam!
Sometimes you get a month. Sometimes you get a day. Sometimes you get a month. Sometimes you don't get anything at all. Yeah, it's different with everyone.
And then where you're in, I feel like we're not going through this whole new phase. I'm like, oh, Jesus, help me. That is something that's so beautiful about you guys' story, is that because we were part of the deafblind community and you guys were interpreters, and I got to really follow this story. I mean, I remember when you adopted her, and I remember like you were coming like, yeah, it's not everything I thought it was gonna be, but we love her, we care for her, and she is our life. And then when I heard that you guys were moving to Houston, and then when you guys moved to Houston, and then jumped into a foster home type program, and I'm like, interesting. So tell us a little bit, like, what made you guys go that direction, and what was that story?
That was actually because of our daughter too, because we were homeschooling her at the time. When we made the move to Houston, we did it for several reasons, but we did it mostly to benefit her. And we thought we were putting her into just a really good school system that would help with her specific needs. And it turned out that was not the case, that she just was not doing well in school, and she was not getting the help she needed. And so we realized that we needed to give her one-on-one educational support, not just with a para at school, but it was that she needed one-on-one teaching for a while. And luckily, or thankfully, we worked for an interpreting agency in Houston that was just so good to us. And Josh and I both worked full-time for them, and we just called them up and said, hey, it was like Christmas time, I think it was December. Mm-hmm. And we just called them up and said, hey, our daughter is struggling, and we need to pull her out and homeschool her, and we also still need to work. So can you stack our hours so that we can work on opposite days? And they were like, sure. Yeah, we can do that. No problem. And so we did that. We worked opposite days, and whoever was working, the other person was homeschooling. And we just took turns teaching and working. And she started, as we got involved, there's a big homeschooling community out here in Houston. I had no idea about homeschooling before we started this stuff. I never saw myself as being a homeschooler, but we got tapped into this amazing community and started going on field trips and started doing these meetups with other kids who had a lot of similarities with our daughter. And it was amazing because she could hang out with people on her own level. And one thing she kept telling us was that she wanted, when she grew up, she wanted to work with homeless people. And she really just thought that I could drive her down to a shelter and drop her off and let her work. And I was like, it does not work that way. But I did, through the homeschool community, find out about this group who gave birthday parties to kids who were in shelters or in foster care. And so we went to the meetings and we signed up to volunteer. And the very first birthday party that we got called to go and work and volunteer at was at this place called Boys and Girls Harbor. Now it's called Today's Harbor for Children. But anyway, it was in one of their homes, and It was amazing. It was an amazing experience for me because this foster mom who was there was just so loving to the kids in her care, and those kids just loved her. You could tell that there were such strong bonds there, and that you could tell those kids felt safe, and you could see that they were happy to be there. And I actually spent a lot of the party talking to the foster mom about that place because I had never heard of it before. And as we were leaving that party, I said to my daughter, I think that we have just encountered God's will for our life. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, I think that we are supposed to do this. I feel like we shouldn't be leaving. Like, I feel like we're supposed to do this. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, you want to be out here with all of these people? And I was like, yeah, I want to have other kids in our house. And so I went home and I told Josh about it, who also looked at me like I was crazy and was thinking, we both work full-time jobs and we both homeschool our kid, and now you want to have foster kids and you want to move to this place. And so I just said, because like I mentioned before, I'm impetuous, Calvin, I am, and something very good about Josh is that he's not. He will slow me down and make me think. And so I just said, let's just give it some time and let's just pray about it. Because I knew that if it was what I was feeling, which was that God was calling us there, then he would call Josh there too. And that was not a battle I needed to fight. So we did pray about it for a while. Yeah. A couple months.
Yeah, a couple months. And I was like, at the same time, I was like praying,
He's praying against it.
Let's not let this be so hasty, Lord. We're really busy right now. We really need to do this too. And yeah. He listened to Kat more than he listened to me. So.
Usually when you're praying for something not to happen, it's like that it's because God is calling you to do that thing. When you're resistant about it, yeah, because it's scary. So we filled out an application and went through the interview process, and that took quite a while, probably 6 months before they offered us a position.
We were pretty sure that it wasn't going to happen, and then they called, and I was like, "What? Wait, I just made it."
So they were opening up a new house and wanted us to be the foster parents there. And the way it worked at that time at this place was that they had several houses on campus. And so you basically moved into a house and you were mom and dad of the house, and they sent you kids. And it was amazing. It was really amazing. It was really hard, but also really rewarding and completely out of our comfort zone. But really what was amazing about the whole experience is there was a group of other foster moms there who had been through everything I was about to go through and who knew what it was like to be starting fresh and to not know what you were doing. And they just surrounded me with friendship and love and prayer. There were times that at one time I was talking about a couple of kids that we had just struggled with so much, and I made the comment to them, it's like it's this one bedroom, and the kids that I put in that bedroom for some reason, I just struggle with them. I almost don't want to put a kid in that bedroom anymore. And they were like, well, we need to come pray over the bedroom. And which is something that I knew but had not actually thought of. And I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And they came over to the house and we prayed in the bedroom. We prayed all over the whole house. And any time that I was struggling, their answer was, well, let's go pray about it. And it helped me with my faith so much. And there was such a sense of community and support out there that we would not have been able to foster as many kids as we did had we not had that support system.
This is such a dear and close part of my life. I mean, if you're just new to the podcast or you're new to my story, I am a foster dad. I'm the deaf-blind foster dad. That his son doesn't think he can do anything, but we won't go there at the moment. But everything that Kat and Josh are talking about is legit, because I feel like I go to hell and back every single time. But at the same time, you celebrate those small rewards. And before we move on, can you tell us a little bit about, both of you, can you give a couple, we didn't prepare this at all, but do you have 3 things from that time when you were fostering that are the most rewarding things that you got during that time? That just like, I miss it. I miss that reward. It's almost that deposit that you're just like, you love making that deposit.
I don't know if there are 3 rewards that I miss. I don't know rewards, but when I think back to that time, well, one thing is the children, the specific kids that we fostered. I think about them all the time, and many of them we're not in touch with because a lot of times when children go back to their families, their families want to they want to move past that experience of foster care, and they want to get back to life, and they don't want their kids to remember that time because it was painful. It was painful for them and the kids. And so we don't really get contact from them. But as the children get older, they contact us. And so I do have contact with some of the older kids now, but every single kid taught us something different. And when I say like we dealt with 36 different personality types, I do mean that. I think it has made me a better interpreter. It's made me a better educational interpreter. The kids that I work with, I can see things happening to them and understand what's going on because I've been there with other kids in those same situations, and that was certainly a benefit of us having fostered. Also, like me talking about that group of women, I'm still in touch with that group of women. We're still friends and we still support each other. And I know that if I have a need, I can send a text message out to that group and I know it's covered in prayer right away. And that's an amazing thing that I haven't always had my whole life. And we're so blessed to have that community still. And then the other thing is I maybe did not fully appreciate the skill set that Josh had as a dad because I had seen him with Jane or with our daughter, but there were times with kids that I would hit a wall and I just couldn't do it anymore. Like this child has just pushed every one of my buttons and I'm about to just start yelling. I'm not able to hold it together anymore. And Josh could go back there and tag team. And I don't even know what he would do, but just he would have a conversation with them. And that kid would totally be calmed down and chill. And I would be like, what did you do? How did you do it?
Which is very odd because normally I'm not that kind of person, but there, for whatever reason, I don't know what that was. Yeah, I was just able to be calm and rational.
Calm and rational. So, and also along with that, our very last child that we fostered was a child that had a lot of mental health issues, and we had her kind of as an emergency situation. She had been in another house and things were not going well there, and they were waiting to find a different placement for her. And they knew that we were leaving. We had, already given our notice, and we really just had like a couple of weeks left out there. And they gave us this child, and it was a very difficult situation, and it culminated. What is that word I'm trying to say? Culminated. Thank you. It culminated in the last day with her. We literally had like a 5-hour standoff in our front yard in the middle of the Texas summer. We had to call the police a couple of times. We had to arrange for our other children to go out the back door to another foster mom so that they could be safe. And this particular child was wanting to get to me, basically. She wanted to take my head off. And Josh was the person in between us. And he was keeping her from getting to me. And she she bit him and hit him and kicked him and screamed obscenities and, did whatever she could. And he was so incredibly calm. And at a time where I, after hours, had lost my patience and I was just done, I literally was like, babe, let her come at me. And he was like, oh, no, that's not a good idea, because I had just lost my patience completely. Go ahead, let her have me. And he just continued to show her love and mercy. And she had bitten him all over his arms and back. And she at one point was sitting in a chair on the porch and she was kind of rocking like kids would in a chair. And he said to her, be careful. You're about to tip off. You're about to tip over. You're going to tip off the porch. Be careful. And she did, she tipped right off the porch and he went to help her out and he just put down his hand and ready to help her. And she was, biting him again, but he was so calm about it and so loving about it and gracious. And I thought if nothing else, which I learned many things while we were fostering, but if nothing else, to see your mate be so protective of you and yet also so calm with the person who wants to hurt you and so loving to that person, that is something I won't ever forget. That's something that will stick with me forever. And it was such a strong visual picture of how much Josh loves me and how much love he has to give and what he can do in a scary, tumultuous situation when I'm at the end of my rope, that he still has rope to give. So I'm so happy to have had those experiences, even though, it was a difficult time.
Yeah, it was a very difficult time that the cat plunged us into headlong. No, we made the decision together, but a lot of the times we were there, I would go, "This is your fault. You know that, right? You did this.
We are here because of you."
And she would remind me that I agreed to it, which is true. So, but no, I mean, the time we were there, it was relatively short. I mean, we were there for 3 years.
Yeah, 3 years. 3 years.
And we had so many girls coming in and out, and it was just I hadn't really thought about how many children go through the foster system before that. We'd known people who'd fought. My brother and his wife, two of their children were from the foster to adopt system from Texas, and then they fostered a third child. And it was so hard when that child left and went back to family. They stopped fostering after that. And that was before we had started fostering. And so I kind of, had an inkling. But just the sheer number of girls that went through our house and the kids that were at this facility, but just getting to know all of these different kids was pretty amazing. We had some difficult girls in our house, and there were some difficult children at this place, but I mean, it didn't compare to just the relationships and the ability to or the chance to get to kind of model what we thought and felt like a loving relationship should be to these kids. I had a point.
Well, there were many girls who thought that Josh was my boyfriend, and I would have to explain to them, again and again over the course of a couple of weeks until they finally understood that Josh and I were actually married, and that we had only ever been married to each other, and that we would always be married. And they thought that they would ask me, like, when do you fight? And I would say, what do you mean, when do we fight? Like, after we go to bed, is that why you put us to bed, so you can have time to fight? And I'd be like, no, we go to bed, we're tired, we're exhausted. We put you to bed so we can go to bed. So it would take a while, but those successes came when they started to realize that we weren't abnormal, that this is what normal was supposed to look like. Sometimes it was good when the children understood what normal was supposed to look like. It often also brought a lot of behavioral problems because then they would start to become angry with their parents for putting them through whatever they had experienced. And if we were their safe place, so they would take that anger out on us. So we had to learn to not take their emotions personally, because even though they were screaming at us, it really probably had nothing to do at all with whatever just happened in the house. It really had to do with the fact that they were mad at mom and dad. And they had a right to be mad, and that was okay. So we learned a lot. I think we learned a lot of patience and a lot of grace, and to not take things personally.
You guys speak the same language I speak, because honestly, being foster parents is not easy. I haven't had 37 kids yet. One day I will, but not current the plan that God has at the moment. But I think that is, you put the nail on the head. You two were being the role model of Christ in a marriage. And Josh, you and I we're way too much alike. We look alike from what I understand. We both got beards. We got hair that's just hanging down from our heads. But we want to protect our wives. And I know I have a lot of, especially those on YouTube, that are men. And I want to speak to you right now. You need to put yourself in check and really think about the woman that you're going to marry. Are you willing to lay your life down for that woman? Because if you start hitting her, you start cussing at her, you start putting her in situations where she's not safe, or you're taking advantage of her, that marriage isn't going to work. But Josh and Kat clearly saw it. Josh was there for her and allowed Kat to fully see her dream and really see what fostering. I don't know how you get the girls, but I'll take boys any day. But I think what's so incredible about you guys' stories is the perseverance that you had for each other. Because you guys kept finding joy within each other, and that allowed you to keep moving forward with each other. This is a very different kind of interview than I normally have done in my previous podcast or whatever. Because this doesn't have a dramatic, or a guy that had sex with over 500 women and sold his life to the devil and that's him cast out the demons, or a prodigal daughter really comes to Christ. It's not like those. This is very different. This story truly is about persevering, even though things are not easy. But if you are married, that you can do it together, and you can make it through. I'm excited to make this piece, because this piece is not going to be like any other piece that I ever make. Because this piece doesn't have a traumatic destruction that is involved in the piece. It has a beautiful perseverance of joy in giving that hope. And we know that my mission to helping people in their lives is to find joy in their pain, to persevere, and knowing that perseverance builds a character that has hope in Christ. We all know that. If you've been following me any long length of time, that is my mission statement for my life, my business, and everything I do. So, to wrap this up, where are you guys at today? I mean, so you guys fostered for 3 years. Where are you guys at today?
Well, we both work for the same school district. It's a Goose Creek Consolidated Independent School District. They're amazing. They have a very strong deaf ed program, great deaf ed philosophy that just kind of fits our view of what deaf ed should be. So we both interpret for them. We attend New Hope Church in Houston. There are several different campuses, but the campus where the deaf people attend, that's where we go. And we interpret there. And it's, a very volunteer driven church, but we do have the ability to say no. And we have the ability to say, hey, we can't make it this week, even though we are the only interpreters there. So if we're not there, then they don't have an interpreter. But they also understand that we need breaks. Sometimes life gets in the way. So like right now we are getting over COVID. And so we are not there this Sunday. And I'm sure they're all happy about that because they don't want to catch it from us. So, but we're in a stage of our life now where we don't have little kids at home. And it's actually been really nice to just kind of rediscover time together as a married couple. And it's been great. We're in a great place.
Awesome. I love you guys. I mean, this has been a journey, going through this podcast. Cause there's a lot of stuff I learned. I mean, I've known you guys for, it's been crazy, 11 years. No, 13 years.
13 years. 13.
13 years.
Your wedding was actually our first real family vacation with our daughter, and we brought her to your wedding. Yeah. Yeah, it's a great memories that we have of that.
Yeah, my wife remembers that, and we were funny. I was telling her I was going to interview you guys, and she's like, "Oh yeah, tell them I said hi." But I tell you, it's been a journey. Like we've done a lot of work for deafblind individuals, but this other part of your life, I knew a little bit of it, but it's incredible. I mean, firsthand knowing what it's like to parent trauma, trauma kids, I can walk that journey with you. I'm in the mix of it at the moment, but
it's not. It is not something that you know how to do. It's just something you live every day, and you try to make the best choices you can each day. You try to just give your children as much grace as you possibly can, because you will never have walked in their shoes, and you will never have experienced the terror or the fear that they're fearing, but you can completely have empathy and understand it. And I want to say that when you foster or when you adopt, you think it's hard right now and it's going to get better. And the truth is it is. There are going to be days that are much better, and then there are going to be days later on where you regress. And that is going to be the truth for any child who has experienced trauma, that they will have periods in their life where they thrive, and then they will have periods where they regress. Learning how to love that child without having your personal emotions involved, without feeling betrayed by them or not loved by them, or why can't you see how much I love you? I've done so much for you, and why can't you return this love to me? That's a struggle. That's a real struggle. But if you remember why you chose to do this, why you chose to love that child, and remember that love is a choice, and that even when you are feeling frustrated and you are not feeling a lot of love at that moment, you can still absolutely choose to love that person.
Man, that was a good podcast. It's different, but at the same time, it's overcoming. And they had battles. They had battles for every girl that they were taking care of during the foster system that they were working with, as well with their own adopted daughter that they had. What this shows me is, one, the battles that you deal with in your everyday life, they're not going to be easy. But what it really does, it really shows that with love, patience, kindness, gentleness, you can find that joy and being able to help others, and being able to give yourself to be able to help somebody overcome their challenges as you are hoping to overcome yours. So you guys ready for the Perseverance Corner? Here it comes. So today's Perseverance Corner verse, if you're a believer, this is a very popular scripture. But the reason why I picked this for the Perseverance Corner is mainly, this is what you saw Kat and Josh do. Is that this is how they persevered through the challenges that they were facing, and they demonstrated this type of love to persevere. And it's important to remember, as we persevere through our challenges, we always have to apply love in our life. So this is what love means. So this is 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. So you guys ready for it? Here it comes. So love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast. It is not proud. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It's not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrong. I want to emphasize that part. Love does not delight in evil, but delights in truth. It always protects, it always trusts, it always hopes, and it always perseveres. Isn't that incredible? Because as I said those words and making this recording, it just spoke home to me. Am I truly showing love to every person that comes around me? Am I showing them? Am I holding judgment against them? Am I really showing love? So this is where, to persevere through our pain and our suffering, we have to really be willing to love those around us. Just like Kat and Josh, they really were able to see past their own selves to be able to love these kids and to be there even though the kid did wrong. The kid were not, there was a lot of judgment that could be passed on those kids. They just met them where they were. So I'm encouraging you today, show this type of love. It's not easy, and it's not supposed to be easy, but this love will transform your life. Alright, now here come the announcements. So I'm doing this recording with extreme back pain, and I'm kind of down for the count. Thanks to a chiropractor that I've been working with here locally, I've been able to get some relief. I'm hoping to get back on the potter's wheel in the next week or so. And it's definitely been a journey to try to live beyond this pain and beyond this type of suffering, because it hasn't been easy to kind of work through being deafblind and entrepreneur, and then next thing you know, I'm bed rest, trying to get everything out in a timely manner. But I'm getting this podcast out in a timely manner, and I'm hoping the video will come out as well in a timely manner as well. That is what's currently happening to me right now. So some other things that are coming down the pipes. I have a lot of new things coming out. I can't really talk about some of it because I'm on NDA on a few of these things. But I'm excited to be able to show you what this whole thing that I have built, or I should say God built, is allowing me to be a light in the darkness and to encourage so many people to live beyond their challenges. And so be prepared to start seeing new videos that are tailored to a specific type of audience, but you'll see what it's all about. CSUN was last month, had a blast. It was so fun to see a bunch of you. It was hilarious when the first person saw me and they're like, "You are the deaf blind brother. I can't believe that I'm seeing you in real life." It was awesome as well. I got photobombed a few times and it was pretty funny. But it was cool to be able to show off the lighted blind cane, and there are some really cool new developments with the lighted blind cane coming down the pipes. Again, I'm on NDA, so can't talk about some of these things. But I just want you to know, if you haven't donated to the See Me cane or bought a piece or any of those things to help me move the lighted blind cane, do it soon. Because there are some really cool things that are coming down the pipes, and I'm super, super excited. Before I forget, Mother's Day bowls that are heart-shaped will be available on the website this month, that you can start ordering them and getting them ready for Mother's Day. That's crazy. Mother's Day is in May, so get your heart bowl for your mom. That wraps me up for this month, and if you need to get a hold of somebody to talk to you about your challenges, feel free to email me at info@perseverancepodcast.com, and I'll be happy to have that dialogue. I check it every day, and I'm there for you. Because this is not a journey that you should be walking alone. So keep persevering, and let's live beyond our challenges. You guys have a good one, and I'll see you next month. Now you're ready to persevere for your challenges today. Thank you for joining me on the Perseverance Podcast. If you'd like to get a hold of me, you can email me at kelvin@perseverancepodcast.com. You can also follow me on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Deafblind Potter. If you'd like to buy some merch or some Deafblind Potter pieces, you can go to deafblindpotter.com. Please give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to the Perseverance Podcast so you don't miss an episode. That way, you and I can continue living beyond our challenges and persevering through them too.